All right, so this is part two or part B to our study on Genesis chapter 1, or in Hebrew, Bereshit Parek Aleph. And we're going to start off where we left off, and we finished verse 1. And now we're going to start on verse 2, and we're going to start with the very first word, Veha'aretz. Now remember in Hebrew, the word, the prefix, and the suffix are attached to this word. In this case, there's no suffix. We do have a prefix here, and it's just letter va. Remember, va or wa in ancient Hebrew, it is a picture of a nail or a hook, and it joins. So and in English, the va or wa represents and. So this is joining verse 1 with verse 2, or in some cases, it can be now or and now. And then you have the next letter, hey, or is pronounced here ha, and which is the definite article. So it is the or the. So we have and the, then you have the root word Aretz, which is the earth, and earth. Aretz can mean earth, but it also could be land. So just depending on the context, will show you how you should translate Aretz, whether it should be earth or land. So you have and the earth, then you have Hayatah. Now, Hayatah is a verb, and in Hebrew, verbs are in the perfect tense or in the imperfect tense. In this case, Hayatah is in the perfect tense. Now, this verb here, Hayatah, is a very, very important verb, I should say, but it is very, very, very controversial. And I'm going to show you why. Here, let's go here. I'm going to read this from the blueletterbible.org and show you in English. So right now we just finished Veha'aretz, which is and the earth, Hayatah, and now we're on was. So far we have got to here and the earth was. Let me click on tools. Same thing we just read, Veha'aretz, Hayatah. I want to show you, excuse me, go to was. All right, Aretz here. Okay, oops, let me go back up. Okay, was. So this word was is taken from haya. The actual word in the text is hayata. So the root word is haya. That's one of the drawbacks I don't like about the Strongs, is that it does not give you the actual word. It only gives you the root word. So the only way to know the actual word is to actually look at the Masoretic text, and is hayata. But let's see what Haya means, and it's from Strong H 1961. And as it loads, my computer is real slow today for some reason. All right, let me go down to the definition. We'll come back up in a second. All right, be or become, come to pass. Okay, to be, become. I want to get here. Yep, there we go. The KJV translate H 1961 in the following manner. Was, come to pass, came, has been, were, happen, become, pertain, or better for thee. So the word haya, or in our case hayata, can or has been translated the same root word in these several different ways, right? So, and why it makes this controversial, this verb, is because a lot of scholars are saying that this word was should not be translated was, or haya or hayata in this case should not be translated as was, I should say, excuse me. It should be translated as became. And if you take that thought or that line of thinking, it would totally change the whole context of this verse. So it would be, and the earth became or came to be without form versus was. So as you can see, that changed the whole context of the verse and really the whole chapter essentially. But when dealing with translation, and this is why these Hebrew studies are very, very important, is that we must define the word not by was, by the actual Hebrew word that is coming from. We must now try to essentially go back in time and to define the Hebrew word by the actual meaning of that time. So what was the writer thinking essentially? Was he thinking a was or it came to be? And that's why, and I've heard both sides. I've read a lot of articles, so a lot of videos, a lot of commentary on this. And I can honestly tell you that it's a draw because you hear a lot of scholars that make a very compelling case that it should be was. And then you have a lot of scholars that will make a compelling case that it should be became or to be. And one of my favorite translations, let me show you. This is the scriptures version. This is why they have it as, and the earth came to be, the footnote, or the earth became formless and empty. So they translated hayata as to be or or the earth became versus was. And so, and this is kind of where, you know, as the translations involve, a lot of times the English readers are not aware of this. And so translators are forced to kind of make a decision. Should we do this or should we that? And sometimes the English reader is just not aware. And so this is kind of why I, emphasize and advocate, go past the English translation, get to know the language. The more and more you know the language when it comes to these difficult topics, you will have a better understanding. So you're just not blindly, just going off what the scholars say, because scholars are not perfect. They're human beings just like us. And many times they give their perspective based off their years and years of research. And so that's why you can have some that would say yay, and that's why you have some that say nay. But if you don't know or understand Hebrew, then you just kind of have to pick a side. So in this case, I can honestly say that I can see how both sides could be right, because in many times in the Bible, the word hayata is translated as became, just as was. Okay, so we have veha'aretz hayata, which is was or to be or became, tohu vavohu, right here. What happened? My computer froze. All right, so vavohu. Now, I want to go to Isaiah 34:11 real quick. Now, tohu vavohu is usually translated as without form and void. So this is where we're at right now. Or here on the Masoretic text, tohu vavohu, which is without form and void, and which is right. This is not a bad translation, but I want to show you something in Isaiah 34 verse 11, and I want to point out confusion and emptiness. Now let's click on tools. Look what we have here. Tohu vohu. The only difference, it doesn't have the va, which represents and. But what makes this interesting, the word tohu, what they're using confusion for tohu, which is the same word here in Genesis. But in Genesis is normally, as far as in KJV is concerned, in most translation, it is translated as void. But here they translate it as confusion, and it's the same word. And let's go down here so we can get the, oops, that's something different. I want to show you in a second. Went to the wrong one. All right, here we go. That's what I was looking for. Slikah. All right. Tohu. Again, the confusion is coming from the word tohu. And let's see where the root H84:14. So 84:14. Let's see the meaning of it. Wow, this computer is so slow today. Slikah. All right. Let me go up. From an unused root word meaning to lie waste. Okay. And here's it's used 20 times in the KJV, and it's translated as vain, vanity, confusion, without form, wilderness, naught, nothing, empty place, or waste. See? Formless, confusion, unreality, emptiness, um, to lie waste, desolation, confusion, empty place, without form, nothing, naught, vain, waste, wilderness. Okay? So as you can see, a void is also fine, but confusion is also fine as well. So we know that the tohu, and let's go to vovohu real quick before I summarize tohu and vovohu. All right. They have, or it comes from the root word bohu, of emptiness. So here we have bohu, or the root word bohu, I should say. The word here is used is vohu, but the root word is bohu. All right, got confused. Okay. They have it translated as emptiness. Now let's see what it has in the Strong's, H922. From an unused root, meaning to be empty, void or waste. Okay, empty. All right. So far we have, and the earth was, or like I said, became to be confusion or void, and vavohu, and empty. Okay. That is also fine as well. And the KJV has it as, yeah, without form and void. And void is fine as well. All right. And then you have vehoshech, which is and darkness. Here we have the va again. Alpani tehom. And I'll just break down these three words. And so you have, and the darkness was upon the face of the abyss, or the deep. Now, pani, the literal word pani in Hebrew means face, but it also could mean presence. And I wanted to show you something here in Genesis 3, 8. Okay, this word presence here, you'll see, is from the word pani. And it says, Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord among the trees of the garden. But the word here is pani, so it could be face as well. And you see the word here, mi pani, which is, the mem represents from pani, which is face, but it can mean presence. So it kind of depends on the context, because going back to Genesis 1, it says, darkness on the face of the deep, and some translations they'll put the surface of the deep, which is fine as well. All right. And you have tehom. Tehom is usually translated as deep, or it can mean the abyss as well. But here's an interesting study that I want to show you of how the scripture just ties together. Something I saw in the Washington Post. Let me just go to the beginning of the article. It says study deep. Same word that we have here. Darkness was in the face of the deep. Study deep beneath the earth, more water than all the oceans combined. Okay. Just gonna go to, and if you're interested, just go to this Washington Post and you can find the article and read it in its entirety. But I'm just gonna read a couple snippets from it that I thought that was very interesting. Earth's interior hold as much water as all the oceans combined. Okay. And it further reads, actually, according to fresh research published in this issue of Science, it may be substantially more than that. The finest research theorized tell us what makes our planets blue and suggest how the Earth was formed. The oceans weren't perhaps the product of icy comets, as earlier research theorized, but were the results of geological and tectonic activity that drove the water to the surface. And like, again, you can read the rest of the article. So when it's referring to the Tehom, it could be referring to the deep in this context as well. Okay, and I'm going to show you why I say that later in the latter part of the verse as well. And it says, "Veruach Elohim merachefet el pani hamayim." Hamayim is waters. So let's look at the English. It says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." Okay. Sorry, let's go back here. All right. Now let's start with this word here, Veruach Elohim. Again, you have the Va, this is and Ruach is spirit, but it also could mean wind. And it also can mean breath as well. But generally speaking, Ruach is spirit and wind. Most translations have this as spirit, but I believe it should be wind. And this is the reason why I'm going to say this. So, and I'm going to show you in verse 3 as well. And so you have the wind of Elohim, Elohim referring to the power, God, Elohim, and the and the Ruach of Elohim and the wind of Elohim, Merachefet, move upon the face again of the Hamayim, the waters. So the wind moved upon the waters, or you can say the spirit. That's fine as well, but I believe it should be wind. And here's the reason why. Verse 3, which is Gimel, and it reads, Vayomer Elohim Yi Or Vayi Or. Okay? Now, there was a video that I saw a couple weeks ago by a guy doing a very interesting study on Genesis 1. And there are many theories as to before I even say that, let's go to the English real quick. And it says, "And God said, let there be light, and there was light." All right, so we know what we're talking about. All right. All right. So there are many theories as what the light is, okay? Because the light or the sun was made in the fourth day, if I'm not mistaken, and we'll get to that later as well. And so there are many theories about what this light is, because this is not actually referring to the sun, but this is a light. Now, why I translate Veruach as wind and not spirit, because he mentioned something that I never heard. There's a term called bioluminescence, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't even think I'm pronouncing it correctly, where basically water can give off light. And if you Google it, you know, it'll break it down. I saw some videos on it on YouTube where you actually see the water giving off light. But basically, the type of organism, there's a scientific explanation as to why. But anyway, so all we know is that in verse 2, something happened with God interacting with the Hamayim, the waters of the deep. And in verse 2, we have now the existence of light. So the reason why I say it should be when something happened with the water. So I believe some kind of stir up with the waters that gave off and generated some kind of light. That's one explanation. And there are other explanations to the light that God was talking about was referring to himself, which is valid. So, I mean, there are many different theories as to what this light came from, or, you know, so if you want to say something else, I'm fine with that. But that's more of a scientific explanation that has to how we can get light without the actual sun. I thought that was very interesting. So I just, you know, thought it was worth mentioning. So you have Vayomer, which is, and he said, Elohim, singular, third person. So Elohim said, ye, or let it be light, Vayi, or, and it came to be light. All right, that's verse 3. Verse 4, Dalit, Vayre Elohim, and God saw, and he saw, Et Haor, which is the light, Kitov, which was good. Okay. Then you have the latter part. And you know what? I'm going to pause right here, make this a part. Let me finish the verse. Okay. Vaya vedul Elohim bayin haor vu bayin hachoshek. I was gonna stop right there, but let me just continue with the verse and then I'll make a part 3 starting at verse 5. All right, so we saw that God saw the light was tov, it was good, it was beautiful. Okay, and God divided between the light, the haor, and between the hahoshek, which is the darkness. So he divided between the light and the darkness. Now, light, or I should say darkness, when you turn on, if you're in a dark room, the moment you turn the light on, darkness vanishes, right? But on earth, it doesn't work that way. The reason why we have night and day, or dark and light, is that there's a rotation that is involved. So although there's no sun yet, there is a light. So he divided the sorry, where am I? Okay, so he divided between the light and the darkness. So how is that accomplished? Through some kind of rotation that is being involved. So you can see now the beginning stages of everything coming to pass. So this is essentially the beginning stages, or the prototype for the actual sun coming in the fourth day creation. So there's some kind of rotation where he's able to divide the light from the darkness. Okay, and a matter of fact, let's just go to verse 5. And Vaikra Elohim Laor Yom. Okay, so now we know there's a rotation going, how he's able to divide. So he calls the light day. So the light is no longer in a generic sense. Now it has an actual purpose in its day. So he's dividing the light now from the darkness. And again, on earth, we don't have a light switch. There's a rotation. So whether the earth is rotating at this point or the light is rotating, there's some rotation where he's able to divide the light from the dark. One thing I did want to point out, this word Vaikra, if you, it sounds familiar, is actually, let me show you the go here. For Leviticus. So Vayikra is the actual book of Leviticus, or the real name for Leviticus. And so if you kind of sound familiar, that's Vayikra, but it literally reads, and he called. That is the literal translation of Leviticus. All right. And now because I did that, my computer is acting up. So let me just pause right here. Oh, there we go. All right. All right. So we have Vayikra Elohim Laor Yom. So and God, and he called the light day, Velechoshech Kara Lelayla. And he called the night, and he called the darkness, and to the darkness called the night. All right, so he divided the day and he divided the night, and he referred to the darkness as Lalila, which represents night. Vayi Erev, Vayi Boker Yom Echad. Okay, and Lalila is night. Vayi Erev, which is, and the evening, which Erev is evening, and there was a Boker, which is morning. And this represents the first day of creation, Yom Echad. All right, so far we went through 5 verses. And so as you can see, this is the formation of everything. We don't have a sun yet, which brings it an interesting point, because there's a lot of debates about whether Genesis 1 Or the first day and the second day, is it a literal 24 hours? Is it a 1,000-year period? Is it a million-year period? I mean, there are many debates, but one thing is that there's no sun and no moon. And so, which makes it very interesting because the moons in the scriptures are the beginning of the months. And how they kept track of times through the sun and the moon. And so, which just brings up another debate about whether if these are literal 24-hour days or these days represents years. So we're going to pause right there, and then we'll start with a part 3, and we'll go probably from 5 to 10, and I'll, uh, speed it up as we go along. All right, thank you.